Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Bravebook. This is episode 7 of my Dwarf Fortress Let's Play, where we have reclaimed a generated fortress in Dwarf Fortress. If you've missed the previous episodes, I recommend starting at episode 1 and watching your way through. And if you enjoy this series, definitely share it on social media or send it to a friend and let somebody know about this cool Dwarf Fortress Let's Play you've been watching. This fortress, we're focusing on building a library, and if you've seen the previous episodes, you'll know that we have some projects underway, but currently, this is kind of interesting. We have our first artifact in the fortress, which is made by Onul, the siege operator, and they've created Gutis Dumor, Orles Dakar Kezar, a fungi-wood toy boat, which is also very useful because they've offered it to the Auburn Rags of Paper, who is us. And also, we have a thing that we need to make for our farmers, a guild hall, which has some interesting uses. It's also cool that it's a toy, which means maybe that's what we're going to start teaching our children. We also need to make ourselves a writer's guild, which is something that I'm planning on doing for today. So, first off, we're going to pause the game, and we are going to double-check this, which is in fact a farmer's guild. And we're now going to jump to the location of the artifact itself, and we are going to take a look at it. This is a fungi wood toy boat. All craftsmanship is of the highest quality. It is decorated with fungi wood, and this object menaces with spikes of tower cap. On the item is an image of Whiskered Equality, the cinnamon glossier bound codex in tower cap. Now, this lower layer right down here is where I intend on building that guild. And I'm thinking about placing it kind of right here. And if I do this correctly, I can also place it right here and make a kind of an interesting upper layer to it. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to build or queue this up for 2 different layers, but the upper layer is going to be the one that we're going to dig out first. So I'm going to queue out 2 different layers for this kind of corner chunk here, and they're going to have kind of have this set up kind of like a skylight. And I will show you how we're going to do this in a second. We're going to kind of go around the edges here, and I'm going to remove all of this. And then right down here on this lower layer, I'm actually going to click right there, and we're going to remove this. Now, this is actually going to remove at multiple layers, which I don't really want it to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here, and I'm just going to wipe that off the bottom chunk right there. Then right here, I'm going to make stairs going up. Oh, I did wipe them both off. I'm very smart. I thought that I had, I thought I was being all sneaky. Well, here, we can queue this back up in a way that will fit just fine. Queue that up there, and then go down here, and then erase the bottom. Now, we're going to go up here as well and erase the top. Now that we've got all of this set up, when they dig into this corner, they're going to dig this out up here, and then once again, I'm going to remove the center. And then once these corners are dug out, I'm going to smooth all of these corners, and then we're going to channel out the middle. And this is going to be our Farmers Guild. And then I'm going to dig out the rest of this bottom area down here, and we're going to have this lovely 2-floored Farmers Guild. And this Farmers Guild is going to have access to all of this down here, which is going to look quite nice, assuming we set it up well. And then right over here, I'm going to use this to actually drain some water into this upper, or maybe not right there, maybe actually up here in the corner. We're going to use this to drain some water into this area using a little floodgate and lever setup. So I'm going to need some mechanisms, we're going to need some levers, and we're going to need some fun toys here. So I'm just going to place that right there. And I'm also going to jump over to here, and I'm going to queue up a rock floodgate. We're just going to make 1, and I'm going to power that up to the front just so that it gets done first. And then we are going to close a bunch of these. Now, something that's becoming a little bit of a tradition here is I'm going to check in with the dwarves that are nicknamed in this fortress. Urist of Legend, who is currently the most upset dwarf in the fortress, who says, "Everything is fine, sir. I think you're lying," but he is making an obsidian bookcase. He is lonely after being away from friends, but exhilarated after getting into an argument. Something that this fortress is very much lacking is a proper tavern, which also needs to be a priority for today. So, goals for today, proper tavern, as well as that Farmers Guild Hall, which will also help with general thoughts and moods in this fortress. However, tavern itself is something I would like to place in the library. believe it or not. So I think I'm going to queue up a setup for not beds, but for tables and chairs for the tavern, as well as the next floor of the library. So I will check back in once I have things finished being designated so that we can get stuff properly set up. So this is going to be the area in the center that is going to be the tavern. Now, the tavern itself is going to need a good name, because as you can see here, we don't actually have a tavern yet. This is going to allow the dwarves to socialize and entertain each other, as well as hopefully bring in some guests to the fortress. But for right now, we're going to just set it to citizens and long-term residents, because I'm a little bit worried at some of the guests that we might get, for hopefully obvious reasons. We're also going to extend this out a little bit on this corner here. Now, one of the next things I'm going to do is I'm going to make this area, and we're going to connect this to the library zone, which we already have set up and ready to go. Now, the library is going to then bring books up here as well, of course, and that is absolutely what we want. So the Fenced Palace is going to get its library, but the Olive of Citadels, frankly, I think we could do better than that name. Let's call it the Book of Citadels. Much better. Maybe even the Books of Citadels. The Book. There we go. The Books of Citadels, a grand tavern as part of the library. Kind of like an extension of the library even. And then also, of course, we'll need drinks for such a tavern. So I will be setting this up here. And I kind of like this kind of open bar design for my taverns. I think that they look very nice that way. We're going to put prepared meals as well as drinks and, of course, cheese into the tavern. I mean, how on earth could a dwarf ever drink without cheese? We're also going to place a few chests in the tavern so that we can get some mugs and goblets placed in here. And then, as soon as we get drinks being made as well, things are going to get rather lively in here, I do hope. We're also going to set up a circle of engravings kind of around the center, just to kind of properly commemorate the opening of the new tavern. And then maybe place a couple more statues, because frankly, it's a dwarven fortress. You can't have too many statues, although apparently I've run out of statues I've deconstructed from other places in the world, so we're just going to move them over here now and get things set up. And hopefully this really starts to improve the dwarves' moods and thoughts. They have plenty more places to read, and now also have places to socialize and hang out and enjoy themselves. But with all of that being said, it appears that we have had a scruffle going on in the fortress. A giant cave toad has managed to get inside somehow. It must have walked through or gotten over the cage traps somehow, somewhere at some point. But we have this problem. There's a toady one in the fortress, a giant cave toad nonetheless. I was kind of hoping to catch one of these, and I'm now frantically looking about going, okay, excuse me, Mr. Toad, how did you get in here? Well, I guess it is time for my military to go do their job real quick, and we're going to have to deal with this so that nobody ends up getting deadified. It did experience mortal terror, and it seems like Omil, aka Toad, has dealt with this giant cave toad. So Toad, let's learn a little bit about you. You do enjoy the company of others, and you often feel discouraged, but you're brave in the face of imminent danger, and generally you act with a narrow focus on the current activity. Toad appears to have come running in, and you essentially just stabbed the thing to death in pretty quick situation. It seems to have slashed it in the head, and the injured part sails off in an arc. Well, I don't think that this is going to be butcherable, unfortunately, but perhaps we could at the very least dispose of the body before it starts to smell. So we're going to set both of these to be dumped and hopefully get rid of them. Now that this upper area is getting dug out, we're going to set all of this to be smoothed. And the game has decided to save, so I'm simply going to wait until the saving is done. So now that we're through the save screen that takes 1 billion years in this particular map, we're going to begin cutting out the center. So the way this is going to work is it's going to be quite safe. We're just simply going to do a whole bunch of this. Now, because there's, just solid rock beneath it, it's just going to, channel the whole thing out. It'll be completely safe, and we don't have to worry about cave-ins whatsoever, which is definitely going to be a benefit for my dwarves in this particular setup. Now, because I'm going to need to place a wall here to remove this, in order to maintain kind of a sense of pattern, I'm going to remove these corners here. And these corners are going to have boulders placed there out of the local materials, just so that they look uniform with this corner over here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go around the edge and we are going to channel out the rest, this corner included. However, I'm going to leave some ramps in so that we can get up on top and place a boulder up at the top bit. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go around here and we're going to do this. We're going to remove everything except for one corner right there. This is going to channel down the surface up here, although it looks like we got one cert wall over there. Well, you know what? I think that'll be okay. We'll just put cert in this corner up here. Now, they're going to channel all this out real quick, and then I can set this up. Oop, cancel this. I just need to set specific materials, and you right there are going to get that. Then they're going to channel around the edge, replace that final corner, and then we just simply need to dig out the rest of this base layer, and just like that, remove this stairway, and we have our high ceiling up here that we can do whatever we want with in the future. And it's hopefully going to look pretty cool. So far, it looks pretty good if I do say so myself. I'm going to go around the edge here, and we're going to replace all of these with blocks, and then from there, we have our baseline for our guild hall. Now over here on the side, I'm going to attach that floodgate that I was talking about, because what we're going to need for this floodgate is the ability for water to kind of flow through, but I also don't want it to flow too quickly. So we're going to make sure to dig it diagonally. If you dig straight into water, it just gets full force of that water allowed to just flow as much as it wants. So what we're going to do is we're going to only channel out diagonally from the surface up here, so that we don't have to worry about it just going whoosh and just kind of causing us some massive amounts of grief down here, which would be suboptimal. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go up to this top jet lever here. We're going to link this lever that we built in the last episode down to this lower object down here. Once it's connected, we're going to just allow it to flow out and fill this area up. However, I want to be very careful to not get any in my brand new fancy guild hall, so I'm going to fill it up with the walls that I'm planning on putting here. I do, however, want some space for some doorways, though, so we are going to remove two of those pieces there and fill them in with these boulders. Now, from underneath down here, rather than... Also, I'm assuming that the big old froggy got in from over here, which is a bit of a shame, but... now, from here, what we've got is I've got this lever set to be pulled. It's been pulled now, and this is going to open up. And because the water isn't going to flow in too quickly, I'm just going to simply channel into the side here. And I'm also kind of very tempted to just throw some water down here and just see what happens, but don't really want to flood the whole fortress right now, do we? But I have queued this up over here to get dug through at the highest priority, and here it comes. A dwarf is going to come through, and they're going to channel through this, and it's going to start flowing out into this area, and I just need to make sure to stop the flow once it gets close-ish to full. Then all of this is going to turn into mud, and we can farm down here as much as we want. So let's just simply wait until the water flows. There it goes. It's coming out of that cavern layer quite nicely. Some migrants have arrived. Would you look at that? I think I'm just going to prioritize pulling this lever right now, and we'll finish filling this up later because I need to go check in on these migrants. And if any particularly interesting ones show up, I will definitely let you know. So nothing extremely exciting as far as migrants go, but I was able to fill out this squad, which is definitely a good place for us to be. It does also mean we're going to need to make some more bedrooms, and it also means that we're going to need to definitely prioritize getting this kitchen set up here. I also would like to note that the ice down here freezes every year, which means this may actually become a bit of a death trap, which is a bit exciting. I'm also going to real quick... remember how I just said that this might become a bit of a death trap? Well, looks like it just became a bit of a death trap for that particular critter that just fell in and then climbed out. Well, that's good. I wonder how good you are at swimming based on the number of times you've probably fallen in that. You are a dabbling swimmer. Well, I guess that's helping. So we've begun smoothing that right there, and we're going to jump up to here, and we're going to assign and smooth some more bedrooms. I'm also going to queue some more up, because currently I need to make probably about 15 more if I were to guess here. So that's what we're going to be working on for the next little bit, and I will update you as exciting events happen. I'm also queuing up the guild hall in the background right now just so that we can actually have that ready, just so that I don't fail making it, because, they really do want that guild hall. And guilds that really, want their guilds done will definitely start complaining if we don't get it finished. So just let me quickly find that, and then from there we can definitely get these dwarves made happy. I've also got this area flooding again so that we can get the rest of this water put away as it should be. So I am just carefully kind of paying attention to it. It's flooding out nicely, kind of in the direction and the way that I would like it to. I kind of want it to flood this whole area. Of course, you know, if water is 1 depth deep, it will empty out. I'm just going to unforbid a couple of these, just kind of keeping an eye on things very carefully here. And we're almost at the value that we need for that guild hall, but I'm just going to keep an eye on this, make sure it doesn't overflood, because if it overfloods, then we don't get to farm at all down here. And if it underfloods, then, well, that's also a problem too. So it's just kind of a matter of staring at it and making sure that it behaves as such. I'm also going to approve this guild hall so that this area, well, hopefully becomes satisfied sooner rather than later. We got more people visiting. It's continuing to fill. It's filling at a good pace. Still very much filling at a good pace. Hopefully we can get it done nice and quickly. Come on, you. We're getting over to the corners. So there's probably enough water in there now. I'm just going to pull this lever and get this shut. Now, the next thing that I do kind of need to figure out is I need to figure out exactly... Uh-oh, we may have actually overfilled this. Come on. Okay, it's been pulled. And the gate is now shut. May have slightly overfilled this. If that's the case, it's not too difficult to deal with. Just simply need to widen the walls just ever so slightly. So we'll go around the edge a little bit here and see if we can't get this sorted. So on this upper layer up here, we actually have kind of an interesting project now because we've got actual access to these upper areas. And this has access to the caverns, so things could like jump over this and walk in. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to this upper area up here. I'm going to remove all of these walls that we constructed and remove some other bits. I'm going to channel out some of these rocks, and I'm going to build a little wall kind of around the edge so that my dwarves are now sealed inside and have a safe space for them to exist in. And then hopefully we'll also have like a nice view of the lower farms down here as they continue to dig it out. So we're just going to kind of go around the edges until the water spreads out enough to just cover this with a nice layer of mud. As you can see, some mud is appearing here, which means it is evaporating. It's almost wide enough now. And we can also seal off this floodgate so that no oopsies accidentally flood the fortress, because nobody likes oopsies, unless they cause an incidental comedy. But even then, oopsies are suboptimal at best usually. So now it is digging down ever so slightly, and we still have some space up here where something could get in, but it's becoming less of a concern as time goes on. So what we're going to do now is we are going to go over to here, and we're going to place some more of these doors, and we're going to then go queue up some more bedrooms so that our dwarves have places to sleep. This is kind of that period of the fortress where things are kind of going well, things haven't quite gotten big enough to cause problems, and we haven't elected a mayor yet, so we also don't need to worry about having to do any mayoral tasks just yet, but we will be getting to that point soon as well, because we are at the population counts where dwarves can begin electing a mayor for the fortress. So it appears that we've run into another magma crab problem. I don't know where they're coming from at this point, but what I do know is that they are apparently in areas that are causing issues. Let me just see if I can locate these crabbies and see if we can figure out exactly what is causing. Wow, that's a lot of badgers up there. There's also a troll apparently. Where's this magma crab? There you are. So we've got this magma crabby here. Crabby, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to turn you into a crabby patty. Because as you move up to the surface, yep, there you go. You just kind of cause us problems, and I can't have that. I can't have you throwing globs of lava at my dwarves. I've just got to remove you, unfortunately, Crabby. I always feel so bad for them because like they're just little wild animals. Like they don't deserve to be just like ripped apart by dwarves with massively superior weaponry, but it's still kind of sad. We've also got more bodies that we need to dispose of down here, so we're going to do that as well. Now, you might remember from the previous episode, I pointed out that we have a very peculiar item, a little slab, which lives a little down here. Now, I think that would be a lovely addition to our tavern, primarily. Now, this little slab here is currently on display. So I'm going to remove it from display, and we're going to jump up here. And I think that this little slab is going to get a little place of honor in this layer right here. I think we're going to just kind of place it right around here. And it's the Electrum, which is this one down here, and we're going to place it right there. And just let the dwarves gaze upon its glory. And there's a mule there. We should eat that. But we're just going to gaze upon its glory for now and witness the beauty that is that slab. Then down here, as you'll notice, our space that's going to be our kitchens in a moment is now ready. So I think it's time to queue that up. So what we're going to do is we're going to place 2 butcher shops in here, and I'm going to make these out of microcline and microcline blocks. Right next to the butcher shops, we are going to place 2 tanners, I think, and I'm going to make these out of jet, just so that they're very clear as to which one is which. And then right beneath that, we're going to make a set of 2 kitchens, which are going to be made out of bauxite, just to vary up the colors. And then finally, we are going to make 2 farmers' shops down at the bottom, which are going to be made out of petrified wood. Now, I'm going to go into the work orders for a second here, and we are going to queue up meals. Now, meals. We are going to make lavish meals, and we're going to make 200. Now, in order for us to be able to do these, I would like to go into the kitchen orders, and you can already see that we've got plump helmets set to not be cooked, but there's a few things I would like to set to not be cooked in here. I also want to make sure that pigtails are not set to be cooked. Let's also say passion fruits, long yam plants, and anything that we are going to be brewing. We're also going to go over to drinks and say, please don't cook my drinks. That's very rude of you. And then from there, so we've got those meals queued up. And I'm going to set up a real quick order here and say when the amount of unrotten prepared meals is less than, let's just say 45, we will make 50. So it's going to be kind of a pretty quick repeating meal here. So when it's less than 45, we will make 50. And then right beneath that, we're going to go to, we'll just queue up brew drinks manually, but I would like to process plants. So as plants become available, when the number of unrotten processable plants is greater than 10, we will process 10 of them. And that is going to start getting us a clothing industry up and running, as well as kind of our meats industry. We're also slaughtering some animals up here. And then in the middle here, I want to make a food stockpile. Now, this food stockpile is going to be for everything that we are going to be cooking. So all of our raw foods, essentially. We're going to kind of fill it out down here a little bit. And this food stockpile is going to be set for food. We're going to remove seeds from this stockpile, and I'm going to remove drinks. I'm going to remove drinks, and I'm going to remove prepared meals. We just kind of want everything else in there. Now, the last thing I want to do is I want to check in on that farming spot thing down here, which still is not complete. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish up the corners over here, which are going to curve in ever so slightly, and be made out of shirt. And then from there, I'm going to do flooring, which I'm thinking I'm going to just simply use the nice green pitch blend. And I know some people have been saying, yo, that's uranium. And yes, I know. Fortunately, Dwarf Fortress doesn't process like material poisoning and radioactivity and such yet. Maybe it will one day, but currently it is not a concern for our dwarves. So we will get all of that moved in, and I'm sure that will go just fine. Little bit of good news here, checking in our most upset dwarves. It appears that Hero Coulette has moved to just being kind of pissed instead of being the most upset dwarf in the fort, as well as Jurist of Legend over here, who I'm a little bit worried we might lose nicknames here, actually. So what I'm actually going to do is specifically for the military dwarves is Toad is going to get a custom role as well, which is going to be Toad Sword. And then I'm going to do this kind of for all of my named military dwarves, because when they kill things, there's a weird oversight in the game right now where they tend to lose their nickname when they get kills. So not a positive thing for this version of the game, I gotta say. Speaking of Jurist of Legend, has killed a single troglodyte, so is doing pretty well, but has actually been quite happy recently teaching all of these different tasks. Considering how stressed out and upset that dwarf was initially, Jurist of Legend is still pissed, but fortunately, I think is definitely on the road to recovery. Is still stressed after experiencing trauma, but if I actually look at here, it doesn't say that he's stressed at all. So fingers crossed, with a little bit of luck, them and their pet cat will be able to get back to a point of health in the near future. We should follow a random worker while they go about their day and just kind of see what a day in the life of this fortress is. This is Rith, one of our animal caretakers, and she's currently reading The Mysteries of the Mountain Halls, which of course is the written portion consists of the mysteries of the mountain halls. And which I can definitely read. The written portion consists of a 38-page guide entitled The Mysteries of the Mountain Halls, authored by Femine. It concerns the fortress Silvery Learn. The writing has a hint of viciousness to it, and overall the prose is passable. Written by an elf, of course it has viciousness to it. And then from there she goes off to a stockpile to store some items and picks up a block and runs over to the large stockpile and places it down. This fortress, as she probably heard about before she moved over here, started off in a kind of a rough state, but since then her time here seems to have been quite great. She rarely feels driven and rarely feels the need to pursue even a modest success. A very relaxing place indeed. She's now socializing after listening to some poetry, and she says, I saw a dwarf recite the guilt of books of citadels, and it is interesting. The guilt at the books of citadels. Guilt. Imagine hearing something called guilt. I wonder what these dwarves could feel guilt about that they would recite such a poem. Guilt, however, down here listed underneath this dwarf's knowledge tab, is a poem authored by Ast Avizrul, and it is an example of the Zephyr of Minds. The work has no particular subject, and the writing has a hint of viciousness to it. It is reasonably serious, but the poetry is passable. And Zephyr of Minds is a poetic form originating from the Sling of Clubs, our civilization. And the rules of the form are applied by poets to produce individual poems. Well, I do hope it was a good sing of this performance of that poem, and then heads back down and is now interested after watching other performances. Well, it seems to be a pretty good fortress to spend time in, at least for the current state of things. I mean, there is plenty of people to talk with, plenty of socializing to be had, and from what I can tell, a pretty healthy overall setup for this fortress. We're also going to go outside and gather more plants so that we can get more seeds for our outside crops, because we definitely want those young lambs, long yams to be properly planted and cared for. We're also going to make ourselves a little indoor zone over here for our pen and pasture, because we would like these animals that we have here to be fully pastured and not just being outside all the time, because I think as much as I dislike having livestock in Dwarf Fortress, it's better to at the very least have them inside where they're safe generally than outside where they are just going to die. We also appear to have captured a giant mole and a giant olm and another male giant olm. Well, we are working on the moles and olms situation, and I can actually make a little stockpile for them up here, which I'm sure they will appreciate once the game finishes loading. I do say, the saving and loading process for this fortress is still close to 15 minutes, so while this thing does its thing, I just want to say, hey, if you enjoy this series and you want to support it directly, you can do that via my merch store or checking out my Twitch streams at twitch.tv/BLINDIRL. And if you just like the sound of my voice, check out my podcast. Links in the description of the video. I'm going to just sit here now for 10 minutes while I wait for this to save. So something that I've decided I'm going to queue up now that the game's done saving is I'm going to set up a melt metal object job. And I'm just going to set that to 0, which also sets it as infinite. And then I'm going to jump back up to the surface, and we're going to scroll down to that first layer that has a whole bunch of bedrooms in it that are pre-generated, because they're just kind of full of crap. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through here, and I'm going to claim all of this stuff, right? And there's a lot of it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Meltdown Item, and I'm going to run back through here and do the same thing, because there's got to be some stuff in here that is metal. It appears not really. Okay, so then I will simply go down to this area that I do know is full of plenty of stuff that is metal. We're going to do the same with this zone. And then I'm going to move down a few more layers, and we're going to do the same thing again, with kind of the hope of getting some of this stuff melted down, because there is a lot of it, and some of it I can't use, and I would also like to begin training my own dwarves for these tasks. So I'm just going to see what we can and cannot get melted, because frankly, there's plenty of random items down here, but we need to do something of value with them. So with that being said, we can also now go down to this lower area down here where I've queued up a few of these zones to get deconstructed, a few of these smelters, and we're going to make magma forges over top of them. Now, of course, this is, turns out, where all of the magma crabs are coming from, so we have to be a little bit cautious when doing this, but the kind of hope and goal here is that we'll be able to start making weapons of slightly higher quality for my dwarves. We'll have to keep an eye on our stocks and bar supply, of course, and definitely be diligent about that. And we'll need to make a little stockpile in the middle here for metal bars specifically, but we should be able to start making our own metal weapons sooner rather than later, now that we have access to all of this stuff. It's also worth noting that our kitchen is bustling decently enough. We do have processed plants and other various jobs available now. Something else that I would like to queue up is just a couple of milking animal jobs, assuming we have buckets available, which we very much should. And then down here on this lower one, we're going to start seeing if we can make our own cheese. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to jump up here to the work orders, and I'm going to go to the make cheese job, and I'm going to make a very simple job. It's just going to be make 2 cheese, and it's going to be making 2 cheese whenever the amount of milk items is above 5. So we'll make some cheese whenever we have enough buckets with some stuff to make cheese. Now, I seem to be having trouble getting these dwarves to acknowledge these as ours, to the point where I can't even assign them to be dumped. These items appear to just be completely outside of our faction's understanding of existence, which is a bit frustrating, as I would really like to get some of these books into my library, as there are so many interesting little books, like all these little parchment scrolls. So if anybody has any ideas in the comment section on how I can force the dwarves to understand that these are mine, that would be very, very nice. One of the final things I'm going to try here, though, is I'm going to try making a little dump zone right next to it and see if I can get them to dump them. And perhaps if they will dump them into this little garbage dump zone right here, maybe, just maybe, I can convince them to use them as ours, but it also doesn't seem like I can even do that, so I'm a little bit at a loss for what we can do with these. Normally the way I would do this is just make an everything stockpile, and that would make it ours, but I think that these just simply belong to the people who've been here before, and thus means we just won't have access to them ever, maybe, which is a bit of a shame, in my opinion. However, we still shouldn't fret, because we do have a good number of books in this library. And because this is a library fortress, I'm very curious as to what my scholars and scribes are up to. In fact, I just realized that some of them are still doing tasks, and they should frankly stop. So I'm just kind of curious as to what they've been thinking about recently, if anything. He is blissful, and he's hasn't been pondering much from the looks of things. Maybe there just isn't too much more knowledge for them to go learn. Ponder Encyclopedia. And let's see if this personal dwarf has discovered anything about Encyclopedia. I mean, they do know many essays and many novels and guides, and 2 poetic forms, but they haven't really made any discoveries along the lines of Encyclopedia just yet. Maybe we'll get something somewhere at some point. Now, there are many dwarves melting many metal objects down here, because there's just a lot of stuff that needs to be dealt with, and also a lot of dwarves that are suddenly available to melt items. Now, not all of these items will actually net us stuff from them. Some of them will give us less than a bar, some of them will give us a bar, some of them will give us more than a bar. So as all of these jobs get dealt, we hopefully, fingers crossed, assuming there isn't some bug going on in the game right now, we'll hopefully be able to slowly begin obtaining some metal for this fortress. Or alternatively, I could just queue up some smelt bar jobs. Like I do have all of these lignite as well as hematite and magnetite. So I do have alternative options. So might as well actually, since I'm here, queue up smelt magnetite ore and I will just simply set that to 0 as well. Although it will take a little bit longer to haul that down here. We'll have to set up some sort of minecart system or something in the next coming episodes for this. But as we slowly begin melting down everything in here, and it appears that we're kind of getting nothing from these. I'm going to need to keep an eye on these. Maybe, I wonder if stuff that you collect in these fortresses that are reclaimed don't actually give you any materials, because looking at these, I'm suddenly noticing that we're getting nothing, in fact. A wee bit concerning. So at the very least, we're removing these items, but we're still kind of smelting history now. I'm going to have to do some soul searching on that one, but what I have to say is, thank you very much for watching this series so far. If you made it this far in, let a friend know about this series. Tell them that you like it. Tell them that there's a cool Let's Play that you've been watching that you would like them to take a look at. Maybe share episodes on Reddit or on various other forums or on a Discord server that you're a part of. The last few episodes have been a little bit quiet, but once we get that military stuff set up, we're going to start seeking out new artifacts and new things for our tavern and for the library. In this episode, the library didn't grow much. However, I do think that tavern is looking pretty schwanky, and I can't wait to work on the higher levels as we make it into fall again in the year 2080 for the Fortress of Bravebook. Thank you very much for watching this Let's Play. If you would like to support me or the videos that I do directly, you can do that via my Patreon or joining the YouTube members. And if you would like to watch me as I play video games on the internet, you can find me at twitch.tv/BLINDIRL, where you can watch me play video games on the internet. And if you would like to, like I said, support me directly, there are many different ways to do that. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.